Hour 2 Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jonas Siegel, Pierre LeBrun coming up here in a few moments. Leafs back in action tomorrow night. We've got a Stanley Cup rematch tonight down in Florida. The Oilers playing the Panthers. I want to play this audio video of McDavid here in a moment because someone was mentioning this online today, that he's on pace for the first time in his career for less than 100 points.
Yeah, 94, I think.
In a season, which is still staggering that
Yeah.
94 is like this awful
He had like
season.
153 like a couple years ago?
A couple years ago, he had 153. Last year, he had 100 assists.
Yeah.
And now this year, he's on pace for 94. And he has not looked good the last few games.
No.
Like, he has not looked good.
Even in that Four Nations final, like until
Yeah.
the end, it wasn't going amazing.
And even before that, like game one was Sid. That was his game.
Yeah.
You know, game two was more the fights and the hits and the Americans. And then the Finnish game, he scored, but, you know, so did McKinnon, and Sid kind of closed it with that empty netter. Like,
Had
he
a
never.
good assist, got a good assist to Sanheim. He got it to Sanheim and then Brayden Point.
Yeah.
So he got 2 points in the Finland game.
Yeah. I mean, a good game. I'm not downplaying his performance, but it wasn't like the McDavid show until he ended it, basically.
He's not on a heater like most McDavid heaters where you're like, did you see what that guy did again last night? I mean, how many times have we done that over the last 7 or 8 years where it's like a 10-day stretch of, oh, my God, that guy was outrageous last night.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure the Edmonton Oilers, much like in this market we talk about Matthews, would you take a 40-goal season and some playoff success, or do you want 69 goals? Do you want 70 goals? Do you want to go on a 150-point countdown? What do you want to do? I don't know. Maybe you could do both at the same time.
He did do both last year. They did go to the final.
Yeah, ideally you get both, but ultimately it is about the playoffs. And that is believing that he's going to snap out of it and come alive in the playoffs. And I think he will, and I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt because he has been a playoff performer. You know, Austin is a little bit different. Like, Austin Matthews has a different playoff history than Connor McDavid. But here's what Connor had to say today about, you know, how he's feeling and where his game is at.
I'd be lying if I said, you know, I've been feeling good out there. You know, it's been tough to get going, which is obviously not an excuse. I got to find a way to get going here. So, obviously, a big emotional week, exciting week last week, and you know, back to reality pretty quick.
I appreciate that too. So do I.
Nice.
Like, it's just like, I'd be lying to you if I said I'm going good, because I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Most guys are like, I don't know, they find a way around to deflect and ultimately say that I'm not that bad out there, which in reality you are.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you really want to break down Connor McDavid tape or whatever, anybody, Struddy, Rashog, anybody that watches the Oilers every game, you can see that he's not doing his thing. And it's just like a bit of a haziness where they're like sleeping a bit. They're a little bit late to a puck here. And I always say this about defensemen, like that are a little slow of feet, when they're a foot late there in the corner and a foot late to the front of the net, and you add it all up, it means a lot. Like, it adds up to a lot of lateness and a lot of problems. And when you're McDavid and you're just a bit off, it means that extra second where you chip a puck away and you break free, the wheels are cooking on a breakout. It's like that split second all over the ice is a big difference.
Big time, man. And I appreciate how he focused specifically on, like, touching the puck.
Yeah, that's what stuck out to me, too.
Yeah.
It's exactly what Jeff said. It's like he said, when I'm going, I have the puck a lot, and right now it doesn't feel like I have the puck a lot. And that means I'm not winning battles. It means I'm not winning races to pucks. And
Yeah.
kind of tracks with how it looks.
Absolutely. And, you know, it is a very candid approach and answer, and he's right. And the team's in one right now. Like, the Oilers, they're in one. They've lost 3 in a row coming out of the break. They lost going into the break, and they're still in a very comfortable position. They will undoubtedly get out of this, but it's going to have to be led by him in a game like tonight where you're in Florida, and the Panthers are, you know, they're dealing with their own issues too. Matthew Tkachuk's still hurt. He's not going to be playing. But the Panthers, you know what you're going to get out of them, and if you show up with your B game, you're probably going to get beat. And if you don't, even if you have your A game, you might not win. There's no guarantees in a game like tonight. And all of a sudden, you start losing, you know, it becomes 5 in a row, 6 in a row. Look at Ottawa. They lost again last night. and Winnipeg 11 wins in a row. And I was jotting that down last night, like watching that game, and then the late game, Vancouver ends up winning in overtime. And yesterday there was a lot of focus naturally on the injuries in Ottawa, and it's justified, and it obviously is going to hurt you because they're not a great team. They're a good team. They're not a great team. You take Tkachuk, Norris, and Pinto out, that's going to hurt you. Tim Stützle did not register a shot last night. Like, I was watching him pretty closely, and they want him to be a superstar. Mm-hmm. But a game like last night, you lost 4 in a row, you need to get some offense going. Stützle just never got it going. He never got anything going. And in the nightcap, again, Vancouver won. Pettersson, 1 shot on net, kind of a ghost, just out there floating around doing his thing.
Like, the scary thing is the Pettersson one later at night. Wouldn't you think him being under the spotlight, and we'll get to Pierre here in a second, that he would be busting his ass to make an impression on everybody, especially for the fan base? I find it so frightening how guys are just so comfortable to go out there and say, nothing to see here, don't even look at me. Mm-hmm. That disgusts me.
Yeah. Wow. That's strong, but I like it. And it's tough. It is tough. When, again, Vancouver won. They needed that, and they're in Anaheim tonight. I believe it's Anaheim tonight. So they got to keep going. They got to keep kicking away. And Ottawa's the same thing. Ottawa's on the outside looking in now. They've lost five games in a row. Here's Pierre LeBrun, our TSN Hockey Insider. How you doing, Pierre?
I'm all right. It's
okay.
Thursday evening. Let's go.
All right, let me get this thing started, and I'm going to rifle 199 on the block at you. Let's see if you can catch up to it. More likely to be traded between now and the trade deadline, Elias Pettersson or Mikko Rantanen?
Oh, boy. Ooh, that's a good one. By the way, I was a much better hitter in slow pitch than I was in hardball.
Okay.
I was,
all right.
From my Northern Ontario, baseball days.
Yep.
I don't think I could fit in that uniform anymore, by the way.
I'd like to see it.
Buying time. I had a mullet. in those days, too, by the way.
Okay.
Pretty. I'm not going to lie. It looked pretty good. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to say of those two, probably Rantanen, if for no other reason than his deal is up at the end of the year. I still, from my understanding of keeping an eye on that situation this week, Carolina's intention is still to keep him and to try and sign him. But I think what's happening is, and that's why you keep seeing speculation, is that teams keep checking in and saying, what are you going to do again if you don't sign him by next Friday? So are they having legitimate trade talks? I actually don't think they are yet. But they're not going to not let teams check in on it, if that makes any sense. They really want to sign him to an extension. What I tweeted again today, and I wrote about Monday in The Athletic, this is just my personal opinion. I think the Hurricanes are out of their minds if they move him because they can't sign him. Because
depending on what they get back, Pierre.
Well, of course.
That leads to my next question. How do you not pull the trigger on that? The only way I see you pull the trigger on that is if you know the number that gets it done, or else you're risking this, especially after a season where they did the same thing with Gensel. Give me a break.
No, but I think the reason the deal made sense to begin with on January 24th is that you understood that you just traded for possibly the most talented rental in years without the certainty that you could sign him. Like, let's go back for a second. Colorado, Chris McFarland on the record, in an interview I did with him the day after that blockbuster, said that he did not allow any teams to talk to Mikko Rantanen's camp. That's why Rantanen's camp was so blindsided by the trade. They did not enter the sphere of, what could this trade look like if we let teams actually sign him as part of it. And they made the call that at the end of the day, they loved the package so much from Carolina as a rental, they didn't need to enter that whole other level of complication where now you got 1 million people involved. So that's fine. My point being, Carolina took the risk that day on January 24th that they were dealing with Rantanen without knowing if they could sign him. And you know why they did? Because the East is wide open this year, as wide open as it's been for a long time. Why should that have changed between January 24th and now, especially when he was gone at Four Nations. He's barely been a Hurricane. I don't get that part. Now, listen, he may get dealt because we all know that Tom Dundon is a mercurial owner. And if he gets so frustrated by the fact that they can't extend him over the next 8 days here. And by the way, they might, but let's say they don't. Maybe he says we have to trade it. That may be. I'm just telling you that I can't see how they go out on the market, before next Friday and recoup the same value that they gave away January 24th in Colorado. Where is your Martin Necas, Jack Drury deal in the next 8 days when the teams that want Rantanen don't want to take away from their roster, because the teams that would want Rantanen are trying to win a cup and don't want to take away from their team.
Okay.
So I don't get the logic.
I'm with you on that.
Try to win a cup, and if he walks July 1st after you win a cup, so be it.
Mm-hmm.
But if it made sense January 24th when you didn't know you could sign him, why does it not make sense today? That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I agree with that logic.
Yeah,
I mean,
nice Brainiac GM move. Really good.
Well, but
really
he is a great player. He's still a great player, right?
Yeah.
He's a great player. He hasn't been. What hurts?
That's the biggest thing, Hayes, is he stunk the joint out since he's
That's
got there.
what is making
For
it
sure.
really, really loud.
For sure.
Is that he has, and Necas has got 3 assists last night.
I know.
Guy played almost 23 minutes. Like, he
Well,
has
dude,
fit in
like,
beautifully in Colorado.
With all due respect to Aho, Necas is saying, wow, I can maybe hitch my wagon to this guy, Nathan McKinnon.
Right.
And like this
And
is what it's
McCarr.
like. So it's for every player out there that's wanting to think about playing with a different centerman. If you hitch your wagon to a megastar, life's pretty good. You can go to Columbus and hitch your wagon to Boone Jenner. It's just not the same. He's a great player,
Well,
good guy, and everything. You're just not going to produce like that.
Not only maybe the player. I mean, I think Aho was a great player, but I would say, on top of what you just said, the systems that each team plays. I mean, Martin Necas has talked publicly about feeling free now offensively in Colorado, and that's not a knock at Rob Brindamore. Heck, who has few coaches in the league have a better winning percentage than Rob Brindamore the last few years? But it's more of a defense-first system, right, in Carolina. And whereas in Colorado with Jared Bednar, he's got the horses, and they play a high-octane game. And so Necas is in heaven right now, no question about it.
With Pierre LeBrun, our TSN Hockey Insider. So Brayden Schenn and his connection to the Maple Leafs have naturally drawn, a pretty significant reaction through Leaf Nation, and everyone's got a different opinion, and they love the name, they love the family, and this dream scenario where you find a way to get Brayden, who's playing his 1,000th game tonight, then you bring in Luke, and they're both up here in Toronto. Yet Schenn has got 3 years after this at $6.5 million, and he's 33 years old as it currently stands. Offensively, he's not putting up huge numbers this year. Explain to me, if you can, why this would cost so much to acquire him when he's the age he is. He's going to be probably a third-line center, and he's got 3 years left on his deal at a decent ticket. Why is this not being perceived as St. Louis would benefit from getting out from underneath the contract, as opposed to you got to pay whatever they are asking for to get the player?
So you just nailed what I believe is the crux of the situation, not just in the conversations that have already happened between the Leafs and the Blues, but I believe between the Blues and any of the other teams that have called in Brayden Schenn. It's a fascinating exercise, Brian, to call around the league and to see how people perceive Brayden Schenn in a different light. There are some people that will look at those 3 years after this year at 6.5 and say, perfect value. The cap's going up. That guy's a really good number 2 center, heart and soul guy. I'd take that deal all day. There's great value in that. There's other guys that would look at it. He's 33, getting older, and would say, oh, boy, I don't know if that's 6.5 a year for 3 more years that I want on my books, or at least not if I got to give up a lot, to your point.
Mm-hmm.
So my point is, we don't know for sure. There's no guarantee he gets dealt. I think that what Doug Armstrong has done here, the GM of the Blues, is put the fishing line out and said, if you want to call me on some of these core guys, let me know what you think. He does not have to move Brayden Schenn. And if he does move him, it may very well be that the summer is a more fertile ground. But I think what's fascinating as an exercise here is to find out from other teams how they perceive him as an asset. And first of all, the Blues can ask for what they want. That's their right. That doesn't mean the teams have to pay it.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying is, I'm telling you and talking to a bunch of people around the league that there is not a uniform response to how they view that Brayden Schenn contract. Some people love it and think there's value there, and other people think, well, there should be a discount on taking that contract on. Isn't that fascinating?
Well, and that's where the rubber's going to hit the road at some point. Is someone, I guess if you're Doug Armstrong in the Blues and you're thinking I want to move the player, you got to find the team that sees great value in him as a player, right? And doesn't look at it like over the hill a little bit and money's too much, and you got to weed that out.
So where does it lie, Pierre? Like what does he go for? Like where do you see the deal getting done? Like where do you meet in the middle on him?
Well, number one, I think the reason the Blues probably do the least as a potential trade partner is you just had that person on your show earlier today. Craig Berube obviously knows Brayden Schenn well, and I'm sure would love to coach him again. So that's a natural in. To answer your question, organization has different assets that are appealing to you. So I always hesitate to give a generic answer because there are some teams where you look at the prospects and you're like, you know what, just give me a first and this. Whereas there's other pipelines where you'd rather go after their prospects instead of a first-round pick. But, if I'm St. Louis and I'm wondering about the lease, I certainly start with a first, which wouldn't be this year, as you know, it would be 26. And then you get into which young NHL player you like the most. And we know who we're talking about. That's where it starts for me if I'm St. Louis. I just don't know if that's an area that the least would be comfortable going in.
Pierre, I was struck by something you wrote recently about the prices at the deadline and how GMs are kind of aghast, I guess, at how expensive players are. To Hayes' point, like with Brayden Schenn, I think maybe you're underselling like how much rentals even go for. But is this year unique with that stuff? Like, or is that what you hear every year from GMs that, oh my God, it's so expensive to acquire anyone, or is this unique?
No, I mean, it's not unique in that it's not happened before, Jonas, but it's certainly not the same every year. What I'm hearing, the fact that we're 8 days out from the trade deadline and I still had teams complain to me today, teams that want to be buyers, that there's not enough players available, is certainly a trend right now. There's no question. I mean, and there's all kinds of reasons for that happening. The East is still, you could start eliminating some teams. I mean, I think Montreal knows that they probably need to sell, but in general, the East is still a bit of a mess. And so some teams aren't ready to sell. I just interviewed Utah GM Bill Armstrong this week, who said they don't plan to be sellers, or they hope not to be. They're 4 points out, I think, in the West. They got 9 UFAs. Huh. So if they're not selling, and if they're 9 UFAs, that's 9 fewer guys on the market. They have to keep winning here in the next 7 days, I think, for that to be true. But the point being, it is a funny year where some of the buyers keep saying, well, it's the same group of players as 3 weeks ago. They're waiting for the shoe to drop to have some fresh meat thrown on the market. That's what the buyers are waiting for. And by the way, it will happen. It's just that it's shaping up to be a little, and hopefully this is the case for Duffy, it might actually be for once later, closer to the deadline than all spread out like we've had the last few years.
That would be ideal, I guess, right, for us.
But that would be so frustrating. Like if I was a contender and like Utah, some teams like Nick Bjugstad. But it's like, what do you do? Like, you're just like, really? We're just going to take this down to the wire? It must be so annoying.
Well, I mean, right now they think they have a chance of reeling in Vancouver and Calgary. And honestly, why should they think that?
Sure.
And then doing what? And then doing
right,
what
that's
after
the
that?
thing. That's, yeah.
For sure, and that's part of it. And listen, I think the Utah is a very unique situation because, they're in a new market. They have a real aggressive owner, and they want to try and play meaningful games to the end for their new fans. Like that is, no one else is playing in that paradigm right now. That they're completely, that's a very unique situation. At the end of the day, like I said, if they lose 3 straight, maybe they're sellers. But I'll give you another one that's fascinating to me. Probably the biggest name defenseman, UFA-wise anyway, pending UFA, if he hit the market 100%, it would be Ivan Provorov, who plays 24 minutes a night. Columbus is 8th in the East. Mm-hmm. So, and they've not been able to sign him. The first round of talks there last month, I'm told, didn't go very well. What do you do if you're Don Waddell? What a story they are. Consider the entire scope of their season, the tragedy before the year, everyone writing them off, and here they are in 8th. Can you really take their number 2 minute-eating defenseman out of their lineup right now?
Yes. They should.
Well, there you go.
I don't know.
In Columbus?
Yeah.
The thing is, they've got a lot of young players that are, this gets back to our conversation we've had with, a number of different teams. Like, At what point do you try to turn it over and realize it's like in Ottawa? Should Ottawa do that? Ottawa's out of the playoffs right now. Should they be trading somebody?
That's a good comparison.
It's the same thing. Like at some point, you've got to put some faith in your young players. And like Columbus has had injury issues recently, and they're still winning games.
It's amazing.
Exactly. And again, I don't know what's going to happen with Provorov in the future. Maybe eventually you get to a number and it all works out.
Like how many guys have not re-signed there? Don't they? Like
they're kind of used to that anyway.
No kidding. But enough's enough.
Stay. Yeah, he has said publicly he wants to stay, but obviously, what does that mean numbers wise? And they're not there on the contract right now. Yeah, I mean, listen, here's another one. I'm going to talk about him on Insider Trading as a teaser this evening, but the Brock Nelson situation is kind of stagnating the market to some degree because every single team looking for a center wants some clarity on whether or not the Islanders are actually willing to trade him. And I interviewed Lou Lamoriello today for a piece that will come out tomorrow in The Athletic, and obviously he keeps.
They're shared a lot, eh?
They're done. They're 7 points out. It's over.
Well, and here's the thing. But the one thing I asked Lou, you guys know this, but in the past he hasn't always traded a pending UFA, even though maybe most GMs would in that situation. And he acknowledged, yes, that is part of my past. Doesn't mean it'll happen this time, but. So what's happening is teams that want to know if they can get in on Brock Nelson still don't know 8 days out.
That's
part of it is the Islanders are trying to sign him. But that has an effect on the rest of the center market is what I'm saying. So there's all kinds of reasons why we're waiting for the shoe to drop here.
Well, and that is, I think, speaks to what you're saying, Jonas. It's kind of frustrating, yet I read it more as it gives a team out there that has the courage to do it an opportunity to really make some serious moves and possibly bring in some pretty significant assets, but they just have to stomach the idea that they're going to punt on the season. And like the Islanders are an example. The Islanders should be obvious, but I'll give you another one, and it's Boston. Boston's the most clear-cut one. Yeah. Trade Marchand, trade Coyle, move off Frederick. He's hurt now. But like you could really use this if you're in Boston to kind of reshape again on the fly. They did it 7 or 8 years ago, and they might have to do it again here with this time it's Swayman and McAvoy and Pasternak. Those are your 3 big guys.
Yes,
and
that's enough to build around.
Exactly. You've got a stud offensive player. You've got a stud number 1 defenseman, a stud goalie. So they Boston, if they finally step up, could just say, screw it, man. We'll take over the whole deadline. We're going to get everything we can, and we're going to reshape our team here. But I don't know if they got the stomach to do it.
Well, and you never know, how does ownership feel about it? That's number one. That's the first thing you got to go to. But I think you're bang on. And the team that did it a few years ago without too much fanfare at the time, but now looking back with hindsight, all the moves since then. Washington a couple of years ago were like, okay, we're missing the playoffs. They didn't miss by a lot, but they were like, okay, we're sellers. They traded Orlov to Boston. They made a few. They sold off a few other pieces. But then they used. But then they used the first they got. From Boston and flipped it for Rasmus Sandin in the moment. Yeah. And the idea was right away, I remember talking to them, we're not going into a 5-year thing here. We're going to try to do this on the fly. And I remember thinking, okay, well, I don't know. That's an aging team you guys have there. You know what? They've done that ever since. Like they're one of the great retools on the fly in the last decade in the NHL.
Yep.
LA as well. Yeah, absolutely. So Boston, to your point, I mean, first of all, Boston actually kind of invented this whole thing. They've always tried to retool on the fly for a long time, but they could do it again. The ingredients are there if that's what everyone signs up for from ownership on down.
Yeah, I think that would be very smart, very savvy, because Boston, even if you get in, they're not winning anything this year. Like they're just not built for it. Who knows what McAvoy's, how he's going to handle this. Lindholm's out for the year. Like they've just had a very tough season all the way back to camp.
Going to start playing like a number 1 guy that wanted that money.
Right. It just may not be his year, man.
Else.
He's never caught up. He missed camp. It was an awkward negotiation. He never caught up. He will reset, and I think he'll be better in the future. But that makes a lot of sense, man. Makes a lot of sense.
The only thing I will say is I feel like we share a brain on this stuff, Brian, and Jonas too probably. But, I make better arguments for the teams on that bubble in the East to sell because I don't think any of them can go to the Cup final anyway. But someone has to make the playoffs. So luckily, listen, Detroit is showing that they might be ready for prime time, which is great. I mean, they're playing great right now. But after that, is it Columbus? Is it Boston? Is it Ottawa? I mean, who's making the playoffs out of that group? And how do you respond at the deadline knowing that, well, one of you has to make it?
But maybe you can do both. Remember that year the Blues, I think, traded, was it Paul Stastny? Do you remember this?
They traded
Doug Armstrong was like, we're going to trade him.
They were eighth.
Or no, it wasn't.
Eighth in the West.
It wasn't Paul Stastny. It was Shattenkirk, I think.
Okay.
And they traded him, and then I think they made the playoffs.
Still made it, yeah. Well, that's it. I mean, they're like, to your point, two teams have got to get in. Like, we're fairly certain Toronto, Florida, Tampa, Washington, Carolina, New Jersey are going to get in. Then it's a 5-team race. It's Detroit, Columbus, the Rangers, the Ottawa Senators, and the Boston Bruins. Like, two of those 5 teams are going to get in.
Pierre, I have to ask you a quick question. You just mentioned something. You said, I think we share a brain on this. Well, and then you followed it with, well, at least Bryan and Jonas. Was there any particular reason that it was not included in that statement?
Oh, it's just that I didn't feel like you were buying the same lineage on the selling here. I thought that you, first of all, we disagreed on the Rantanen move. That's why I didn't think we were sharing our brain, right?
No, I think it's absolute. We agree on one thing. It's bonkers to bring him in there and then just flip him and think you're going to get the same kind of HS.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
you do have the same brain.
Yeah, we're sharing a brain, pal. Welcome to the brainiage.
What I need to do now is share your workout regimen, buddy.
Looking good, feeling good. Looking good, feeling good. Yeah, Mr. Workout, Mr. Jim himself.
Pierre, anytime.
Maybe a golf swing.
Yeah,
Pierre,
man.
anytime you want to show up to the gym, pal, you just let me know.
I do show up to one, but it's the one in my house.
All right. Keep going, man. You're an inspiration to all of us. Keep it going. Thank you, Pierre. Appreciate it.
So much fun. I feel like we could do this, all night. Let's keep going.
I know there's so many different teams. Like we haven't even hit on, what Edmonton's going to do. They're playing in Florida tonight. Like everyone's screaming, Skinner's got to go. You got to go get Binnington, and Bouchard's on the firing line.
I love how everybody's saying that St. Louis is just going scorched earth. Like,
shouldn't they though? They're not going anywhere. They're not doing anything. Like,
not easy. A lot of no trade clauses there.
Yeah. I'd be calling on that Parayko kid, man. He's not a kid anymore, but
damn right. That's damn straight.
If I'm the Leafs, I'd be more into that.
Right-hander, puck mover, big body,
load me up a top 4.
I know one thing
all day.
I learned one thing about Colton Parayko at Four Nations. Don't pick him out of a scrum to be the guy you want to fight.
Yes, pick somebody else quickly. All right, Pierre. We'll leave it there. Thank you for this.
See you, boys.
Pierre LeBrun joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Count on Maple Toyota for the right winter tire package for your Toyota. Trade in your old tires, buy a new set, get $40 back. Visit mapletoyota.com. I would have more interest in that if I'm the Leafs. Like if you're going to pay a package, a significant package.
His contract is not short either.
I understand that.
That's actually longer.
I'm taking it.
I'll take my chances with him.
You give me a top 4 of McCabe, Tanev, Riley, Parayko. Give me a better top 4 in the league than that.
Oh, what do you got to call your buddy Dom on Parayko to see if he approves it, Jonas? Call him. Text
Give him a
him
shout.
Say,
give him a shout.
Do me a favor.
That situation.
No. Text him your buddy Dom and say thoughts on Parayko coming to Toronto. if his word is like you live and die by it.
I don't live and die by anyone's word.
Okay, well then give us your opinion. We're waiting for it.
By the way, he does some really fascinating stuff. The way he charts salaries, what's worth, what's expected.
Smart guy, man.
Smart guy.
Dom is
absolutely.
I just want to know.
You brought him up, not us.
Yeah,
that's true.
You were like, I don't know. I got to check with Dom's stats.
No. You know what I do sometimes is like he can project. He can look into the numbers and say what the projections will say for a player as he ages.
Okay,
so
what
sometimes
are his
I like to know what that is.
Brayden Schenn going forward and Parayko.
Well, so I was asking about Tavares, and like his projections are rosier than I think mine would be, and his are based on like how he's playing this year. And like anyway,
listen, he's aged pretty well, John Tavares.
Yeah, but
he's
like
still playing really well.
Anyway, Parayko, I think it's an interesting conversation. I think it's one that they're having. Should we devote our assets to the center, or do we devote our assets to a defenseman? For a team that hasn't scored in the playoffs and has a really big problem at third-line center and also is vulnerable to an injury at center, I would lean center. But I don't know. You can make a case for someone like Parayko. It's just like the age in his contract scare me, especially on top of all the guys that they have signed who are already pretty old.
He's under contract for a long time. The same price, 6.5.
Yeah, but it's like 5 more years.
Yeah, now he's 31. He's a defenseman. But yes, he's got 5 years left on the deal. It's a big commitment after this, undoubtedly. Yet, I mean, Chris Tanev's got 5 years after this.
And McCabe is
so
5
does
years.
McCabe, and
Riley
does. He's got 4. Like, basically, what that does is you're allocating a fair amount of money, not a ton, but a fair amount of money to a top 4 left shot, right shot, left shot, right shot, all veterans, all guys you can trust. That, to me, is very enticing.
But again, like we've been over this, like in the playoffs, their problem has not been defending. It's they haven't scored. Now, you would say, well,
they transition the puck a lot better. You're going to move the puck a lot better.
But star players score, and maybe you score more. But I don't know. I don't know.
But it comes down to what's available. Ideally, if you can get some superstar or multiple guys who you know are capable of scoring at like a 30-goal rate, you plug them into the lineup, that would be ideal. But if that's not available to you, if the option is Brayden Schenn or Colton Parayko, I don't think Schenn is going to score
I think that's
at a 35-goal rate come playoff time.
No.
He'll chip in offensively more than Parayko would, but how much is Parayko going to save you on the other end? It might be negligible in the end, and I'll take the big defenseman. I think there's a lot of value in that.
There's also long-term projections involved with this. Like NHL executives, whether it be presidents, GMs, they've got like deadline thoughts. They've got 6 months from now thoughts. They've got 2 years down the road thoughts. And the idea of bringing anyone in the future with the salary cap going up, they might be looking at the future saying, we could allocate that money to that guy who's a UFA at that particular time. So why do you want to blow your brains out on Parayko?
But to your point, Jeff, like you could look at Parayko now and be like, 6.5. The cap is going to be 95.5 next year. Then it's going to go to, I think is it 100 after that?
Like $8 million a year or something.
Eventually, 6.5 for him is going to be like 4.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. He is 32 years old too. It's something you have to factor in.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, exactly.
I kind of think like you try to split the difference. Like I don't think I'd go all in for Schenn. I'd try to find the next best thing that's not going to cost you as much, and then also try to find a defenseman who's not Parayko.
But what does that mean if you have aspirations to kind of get over the hump and get it done? Does the idea of saying, I wouldn't kind of go all in, well, if you're expecting the players to go all in, don't you want to kind of put that mindset in play?
What does all in mean? Like just spending all your
going
stuff?
to get Nathan McKinnon, but that's just not available.
Right. So that's
like we're talking about guys that are third line centermen in the NHL.
Yeah.
So to associate both of those things as all in, it almost can't be the case.
No, but it's all
in as far as what you can do.
Right. And what you need, which is also a good sign. Like they don't need a number one center. They don't need a number one winger. They don't need a top pair defenseman. They have that.
Yeah.
Like McCabe and Tanev is a top pair that's one of the best pairings in the league.
Flipping a little bit, but yeah.
Okay. But
yeah, you're right.
Like over the course of the season, they've been great.
100%.
And your goaltenders, you're not making a move there. We'll see what they do come playoff time in terms of how they perform.
But this is the problem. Like even third line centers cost you first round picks.
No kidding.
Based
when did
on
that
what
happen?
history?
Like that is
last year. Adam Henrique was traded for a first round pick. Alex Wenberg was traded for a second and a fifth. Like,
dude, I'm telling you,
insane,
back in
but
the
that's what it
day,
costs.
first round pick and a prospect, your best prospect, was for an like a Bill Guerin or some kind of stud, man.
Yeah.
Now it goes back to the main point, Hayes, which is the league is what?
Well, yeah, it's watered down.
But it's also supply and demand. Like there's just not a lot of centers. As Pierre said, there's not a lot of teams selling. So if the teams have a center, they're going to be like, give me a first round pick or we'll just keep him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then Edmonton's like, okay, we'll give you a first round pick.
Well, now Henrique was a UFA. It is different, and it seems like there was a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Let's work out a deal, and it now he's still there.
Yeah.
So that is a part of it as well. Like I think they maybe had a pretty good idea of how that was going to work out and whether he was going to stick around. So maybe they were willing to stomach that and pay the price.
But you nailed it with Schenn. Like that's almost what you say to Tree Living is like, or if you're Tree Living is like, I'm doing you the favor, and like not the other way around.
Right. And then it's a game of chicken. Yeah. All right. Overdrive continues. We got no Leafs tonight, no Raptors tonight. Raptors with 2 losses in a row. That's big, though. That's big for them the last couple of nights. But now the schedule really starts to ease out. They're going to have to really work hard to lose moving forward. Leafs at the Rangers tomorrow night. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, we got Craig Button coming up. Craig will join us into the 6 p.m. hour. I'm sure he's curious to see what McDavid's got in store tonight because, Connor was speaking on it earlier today that he's not feeling great about his game. He's not getting a lot of touches. His numbers have not been very positive. And I saw Jason Greger, who's a guy out in Edmonton, follows the team closely, just tweeting out, McDavid has gone 8 games without a point 5-on-5.
Wow.
6 games without being on the ice for a 5-on-5 goal. Outscored 10-0 at 5-on-5 the last 6 games.
Wow.
I'll just tell you one thing. As soon as you kind of count the team, him, they've done it on 3 or 4 different occasions in the past 2 years. They will go on an absolute heater, and he will be the main man behind it. You watch.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't shock me if it started tonight. Clip it.
Well, it kind of has to, doesn't it? Like, you'll take credit for saying that Connor McDavid will have a great game tonight. I like that. But
I'll give you one of these. I'll tell you that.
I'm not betting against this guy. I mean, at some point he's going to come alive. We know it. But 8 games without a point 5-on-5 for McDavid.
Well, you mentioned the other one with Matthews. It's 9 straight without a 5-on-5 goal.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same. It's like, oh my,
right.
That never happened.
Including 3 at the Four Nations, man. It's 12 without a goal.
And
maybe
this is
it's
like
something to do, guys, with like these top players playing the minutes that they're playing at forward. Like, you want to rip your number one centerman out there 25, 26, 27, 20. It's a lot, man. Like, I was a right winger on a top line, and I used to play 18 and 19 minutes a night. I know that's a low end, and I know a lot of things are different, but to play much more than that, like, you're running guys into the ground, man. Like, you are running them into the ground.
I think the scary, like, elephant in the room is that these guys also are not young anymore. And, like, I was talking about this a couple of years ago when McDavid had that great year. He scored 64 goals, 153 points, and I came on almost immediately and said, I hope you enjoyed it. It's never getting better than that. Yeah. He'll never score more goals. He'll never have more points. And people went nuts on me.
I did.
You did, exactly. Look at the history of every great player. Like Gretzky, when he was 23, was unbelievable. Mm-hmm. At 29, he was still the best, but it wasn't 23 Wayne Gretzky. Year 10 of Mario Lemieux was not like year 4.
Yeah, it seems like they say most pros, they're in their prime at like 26, 27, but when you've got like that wonder boy stud, they can do some things at 24, 25 that are outrageous that might not be replicated.
Exactly, because for them, they've been in the league since they were 18. Yeah. So that's year 6, 7, 8. And then it goes over. It doesn't mean that they're not going to consistently be great. It's miles. Like it's a lot of hockey, and it's a lot of attention from the opponents. And also,
we have to stop right now, Hayes. We need to clarify. These guys are not on the downturn. That's not what I'm suggesting. Do not radio us.
I'm saying the height. Like Matthews is never going to have a year like he had last year, ever again. It's never going to happen. So it was amazing. It was awesome.
What do you think his career, like the highest amount of goals he'll score in a season from now is?
55.
That's what you think he'll top out at?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get to 60 again.
60.
Man, 3 times in your career is absurd.
There's 2 in the first 8.
Yeah, exactly. This year, is he going to score 40 this year?
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, he's not young. Again, he's been in the league 9 years.
He's 27, I think, or no, he's 26.
Yeah, he's right around there, 27 or whatever. And, again, we'll see what happens with Mitch in the future. If Marner's not here anymore feeding him, who knows how that's going to affect him. Again, he's still the best goal scorer. These guys are all going to consistently put up numbers like Sid has, like Ovi has.
Yeah.
But even look at Sid. Like, Sid topped out. Sid doesn't have a ton of 100-point
season was the best season.
Yeah, he had like 120 points or something like that.
He was like 20 or 19.
Right. And then it was a lot of like 94 points, 97 points, 98, 105, like again, best player, complete players, but the obnoxious stat seasons at some point top out. And you don't know when they're coming, but they happen. And I think that's kind of where we're at with McDavid.
But you know what stuck out to me, and Jeff could probably appreciate this more than I can, is the confidence thing. Like, you think guys that good, they're just always confident. But even like guys like that are not. You know what I mean, Jeff? Like, even guys of that caliber, Matthews caliber, like they struggle sometimes with confidence, and like you can see it in their games.
I think it all goes hand in hand. Like we talked about the miles and the Four Nations and the fatigue, and when you're fatigued like that, it all goes to your legs. Because when you're not touching the puck and you lost your confidence, it's amazing that your legs feel like two cement like pillars out there. And then you get one that bounces off your ass, and then guess what happens? You're just flying a zillion miles an hour. So it's all connected. It's just fatigue, it's mental, it's the legs, and all it takes is one break on a power play or one going off your stick or your ankle, and then all of a sudden you just kind of snap out of it. But he desperately needs it tonight.
Yeah, and I would fully expect it will happen. And I think McDavid come playoff time, there's also, that's a part of it too, the psychology of the regular season. For guys that have been doing it this long, it's like, all right, let's just get through this, man.
Yeah.
Like, let's just get through, and I'm going to chip in, and we're going to win. But, like, Connor McDavid is not – I don't think he cares if they finish with 105 points or 101 points or, whatever. It's not that he's not committed to his craft, but he
wants 16 wins in the spring.
They want 16 in the spring, and Austin's no different. And they've also got a lot on their plate. You get older, there's that many more events you got to go to, and you're doing commercials, and you've got your personal life, and there's just different things happen for athletes at different times. And it's going to lead to some ebbs and flows. Where you're 22, 23, you can speak to your own experience. All it is just playing in the NHL. Like, that's all your life is.
You're letting it fly, man.
Yes.
All over the place.
You don't have a care in the world, man. You've made you've made bank at that point. You're the top dog. You've got energy. They couldn't possibly take energy away from you.
Yeah, nobody's pulling you in any other different direction.
Nothing,
You're
man.
Just like, I'm on a heater right now, and this is going to last forever.
Right. And it doesn't, at some point, you become the kind of elder statesman in the league, and it's just a different approach. We'll see what the Oilers have in store tonight. Craig Button on this and more in about 20 minutes. We'll revisit our chat with Craig Berube. Craig joined us about an hour ago. The Leafs back in action with the Rangers tomorrow night at MSG. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, we sent Al's brother out into the city with a pair of Leaf tickets. You have to guess where he's hiding for your chance to win them. You guys ready for the fourth and final clue of the week?
Hit me.
Hey, Overdrive fans, it's Thursday, which means it's time for your final clue to find out where Al's brother's been hiding at this week to score yourself a pair of Leafs and Panthers tickets for March 13th. This place is known for its vibrant murals and street art and is quite the hotspot come summertime in Toronto.
Okay, Al's brother. Find out where he is, and when you hear the cue to call tomorrow, first caller in with his location wins a pair of tickets to see the Leafs play the Panthers March 13th. Find Al's brother is brought to you by McAlpine Ford in Aurora. Our family, the Ford family, and you. Full details at tsn1050.ca. Craig Button in about 10 minutes. We got some quick news here. We were talking about how, back when you're 22, 23, you're unstoppable, and then sometimes there's bumps in the road. I think Jordan Spieth would be maybe the best example of that in the golf world.
Yeah.
It's just been reported by Golf Week that Ricky Fowler and Jordan Spieth have been told they will not be receiving sponsors exemptions to next
Bay
week's
Hill?
Arnie Palmer. Yeah, Jordan Spieth not going to Bay Hill, which is
I would
crazy.
say,
man.
how come Webb Simpson and Adam Scott in the past got exemption after exemption, and I'm Jordan Spieth, and you're not going to fire one up for me?
No kidding. Like, he still moves the needle, too, man. This is
Both of
stupid
those
for
guys
golf.
do.
Yeah, like Fowler's a little bit. He still does. He's a household name for sure. But like Spieth is a monster of the sport, and he's playing this week, and he's trying to get his game together. He's trying to make the Ryder Cup team, is what he's doing.
That's the kick in the pants, though, where you were that guy that was in all those elevated events, and now you're not. Like, it's
crazy, man. When they created this whole thing, it was like, well, Spieth will be in it forever. He doesn't have to worry. And now they cut the line down at 70 or whatever, and he's on the outside of it looking in, and he can't get in. It's crazy. And like today, we saw Jake Knapp shot a 59 at PGA National.
Had a 30-foot putt. I watched it live for 58.
Crazy, man.
Pretty rich that Billy Horschel comes out. It's like, this is supposed to be way harder. Isn't it kind of cool to see guys going low? Isn't it more entertaining? Like, I don't want to see them dying every time they play a golf course, and it's like water ball, runs off the green, in the water, sawgrass tough. Like the guy, they were talking about it being overseeded and soft greens, and he crushed it.
Yeah,
What's wrong with that?
Well, 59 is really cool. I mean, there's only been 15 ever in the history of the PGA Tour. Now, this course is historically very, very tough. And you know what it's like coming home, the bear trap or whatever. But,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
I hope the wind picks up tomorrow because I played that course several times, and it can absolutely hand you your lunch if the wind blows up on the bear trap, those last bunch of holes.
it'll get
Good
you.
night. They won't be complaining about the low scores then.
Well, Billy was chasing alligators today on the course. You see that? Billy Horschel chased an alligator off the fairway at one point.
I know.
And
like, why do you got to be a hero?
Why are
and
you
do
the
that?
one doing that? Exactly. Send some security over, Billy.
Well, he's like the Florida Gator guy.
Yeah, he's the Gator guy, Billy Horschel. Anyway, shout out to there he is. That takes some stones, though. I'll give him credit. 59 by Jake Knapp. That's pretty cool. He's got a swing on him, that kid, man. It is so butter.
He's got a mustache. He's got a girlfriend from Ottawa. He's got it all cooking.
He's got everything moving in the right direction, Jake Knapp. All right, final hour coming up. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.